With all the new technology and the abundance of information on the web, you would think that buying or selling or understanding the real estate market would be easier than ever. But ask yourself one question. Now that you've done your homework and you think you know what's going on, what do you do next? Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is 10 o'clock on Tuesday, and as you know, every Tuesday at 10 o'clock we talk about real estate, more specifically about advising you with regard to your transaction and sort of the ins and outs and some of the myths and misconceptions about real estate. We get into the real sort of meat and potatoes of transactions. And today we're going to talk about a subject that I know is probably the most popular subject on late night TV or in some cases during regular prime time. And those are those flipping houses type programs and that kind of industry. We're going to specifically talk today about flippers. And if you're a buyer, should you be concerned when you buy a flipper? And the bottom line is, yes, you should be. And I'm going to get into that today in detail. You know, I was writing the notes down for this particular blog, and the more I wrote my notes, the more I realized this may be a two-parter. I'm going to do my best to make it a one-parter. As you know, we do about 10 to 15 minutes of time here on our on this blog. And it may be difficult for me to do that because this is truly an important subject matter. There has been, in my experience over the last few years, a lot of heartache with people who buy flippers. And we knew years ago as realtors that the industry was kind of cutting corners and not really understanding the economics of flipping. And as time rolls by, with the plethora of programming that's on TV that makes it look so simple, we were beginning to see that people were getting not the greatest impression of what the true responsibilities are when it comes to flipping. And nowadays, I think I'm seeing it more often, and so that's why today I wanted to pick the subject. Should you be concerned when you buy something from a flipper that looks terrific from the outside, captures your emotions, because when you walk into a house and the first thing you say is, wow, is that the whole story? And you know, the truth of the matter is that it's not. There's a lot more to be concerned about. So we're going to get into that today. Again, I don't know that I can make it all in one parter. This may be a two-parter. I hope you'll hang in with me. My name is Stewart Fournier, and I'm an 18-year veteran of the real estate industry here in Los Angeles. My wife and I, Randy, we practice in the South Bay beach areas. We live in Manhattan Beach. We represent Manhattan, Hermosa, Redondo, and we also work out of the area as well. We do have a background for that. I won't get into that and bore you with it, but we do represent also on the west side, basically from Mulholland all the way down to Surfside is our territory. I know that sounds encompassing, but you know, we truly are experts at listing in those areas. We've done short sales, we've done foreclosures, we've done flippers, we've done new bills, we've done obviously residential sales, we've done probate, we've done 1031 exchanges, we've done it all in our combined 35-year plus experience. And that's one of the reasons we started this blog. Through our experiences and our transactions, there's so much to learn, and so we wanted to impart as much as we can to you. That's the purpose of this blog. Now, we are on Facebook Live. If you happen to be catching me, you can feel free to ask a question about this subject or any other subject related to real estate. I can't see you. My platform doesn't allow for that, but if you have a question and you type it out in the comments section below, I will see it on my screen and I'll do my best to answer it. So feel free to ask. And as a matter of fact, if any of you ask a question, we will give you a free coffee bean card. Okay, a little bribe there. Anyway, so let's get started. As you know, it's no secret, there are tons of programming, and there's all kinds of version of programming that we've seen relative to reality TV and flipping houses. There's all different ways that they've approached it. I mean, there's personalities involved. There's experts that lead someone into the business involved. And for the most part, yes, I shouldn't say for the most part. In all circumstances, usually these are scripted shows that you should be very aware of are designed to capture your emotions, designed to get you excited, because let's face it, otherwise they just don't last very long and they don't get a whole lot of pull. And they're not necessarily that concerned with the mechanics of real estate, which you should be as a legitimate buyer. I'm going to go on a limb here and say most of you realize it has more to do with the personalities of these particular shows more than it does the reality and the specifics behind what you should be concerned about, and that is the actual bills themselves, what the profit margin is for the builders, that kind of thing, because that plays into what can be a real hassle on down the line after you buy one of these houses. So let's talk about, for example, just the profile of a flipper. With a plethora of information on the TV making it look easy, it stands to reason that there are a horde of people now out there getting involved in the business and seeing if they can do it for themselves. Not only are there constant programs about it that come and go, but there's also people on late night TV with seminars that have hundreds and in some cases even thousands of people attending them, and they think it's just an easy thing that you can learn in one afternoon. And I think instinctually most people realize that that's really not the truth. And really, most of these gurus, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it right out loud, most of these gurus work on the numbers in terms of the amount of people that come to these seminars and then are upsold for particular programs. And I will tell you that over the last couple of decades almost that I've been doing this, some of these people have actually ended up in jail. Okay, your late night TV, some of these people have actually landed up in jail for the propaganda and the basic real estate pornography that they propose, that they put on the air. So that's certainly not every flipper. I'm not trying to generalize for every single one of them. But that's the motivation. The motivation is to get a number of people at their seminars, and hopefully they filter some of those for an upsale. And then there's, I won't get into the specifics behind that, but there's more upselling even when that happens. And I have personal experience with some of these devotees or students that have come to try to actually represent themselves almost in an illegal fashion in order to get some of our what we call teardowns and those kinds of things, which of course flippers are attracted to. So to begin with, the profile of most flippers, and I'm not discouraging anyone from getting involved in flipping, I'm really not, but just know that there is a whole lot to this industry. And there is a whole lot of responsibility, not only from a profitable standpoint, but also from a legal standpoint. And that's the thing I think that gets to me and most other realtors, is that no one's upset that you're taking on the initiative to become entrepreneurial. That's, the American way, and we support that a lot. But what does become disturbing is when corners are cut, from an ethical standpoint, which you don't have any obligation to, as we do as realtors. I understand that. But it really does cloud the industry with a great deal of misunderstanding, hurt feelings, and more importantly, not the greatest workmanship. So that's what I want to get into today, the specifics behind that. So most flippers, and maybe the word most is not the best word to use. I don't know what word to use. A lot of them, okay? They are attracted to and trained to look upon an opportunity wherein a house needs a lot of work. And obviously the object here is to fix that house up and sell it for a profit. And when those opportunities arise with today's technology, they arise on everyone's phone automatically. Quite frankly, and as a result, there are no less than 30 to 40 phone calls that a listing agent will receive from a number of flippers that are on top of it, making sure that they see anything on the MLS in a geographic area that comes close to being a house that's considered a teardown and needs improvement, and they start calling right away. And what ends up happening is we get all kinds of approaches we get approaches where people offer cash right over the phone, send an offer right away as soon as it hits the MLS, and some of these people haven't even seen the property. Now, what does that tell you? Well, what that tells you, first of all, number one, is that there's been no research done on the house. There's no real understanding of what the real profit margin is. There's just a bidding war going on, and they hope that they get the house so that they then can investigate and find out what's right or wrong with the house. So from the very beginning, we are always barraged with a lot of people that know the steps in the process by which they have to get the house in the first place. And so, again, with the prevalency of all these TV shows and all these lecture halls that are filling people up, there is a certain approach wherein we as realtors know that the first wave of people that actually come to us and make bids are not really sincere about the research that's necessary to have accomplished whether or not these sales are going to be legitimate for them in the end. And so we get an overbid process, and what ends up happening many, many times in the overbid process, or that is to say these flippers overbid, is they get emotional, just like you do when you buy a house. They get emotional about the potential of getting a job, and they are not easy to come by in the Los Angeles area. Flipping in the Los Angeles area is not an easy prospect for a number of reasons, which I won't get into. Again, I would go on forever. But know that many, many of them have unknowingly, once they get their actual bid across and they win, many, many times overbid, simply because there's 30, 40 people that are trying to get the same house, and they allow themselves to not necessarily follow the formulas that they were taught. And so they usually, in many times, will overbid. I want to do this as cleanly as possible because there's so much to say. The bottom line here is that they really should know exactly what they're bidding on and getting a true assessment of their cost. And that rarely happens, especially if they haven't even visited the property. That's one of the telltale signs, actually, that we know and in some cases refuse to take an offer unless they've actually visited the house. I do that actually as a matter of policy. I will not take a bid from anyone in any of my teardowns wherein they have not visited the property. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of the people that are involved in the flipping process. Now, this is not to mention the fact that they don't necessarily understand the mechanics of actually taking the time to flip a house as well, respective of the actual repairs themselves. And that's probably the second tier of concern, is that many, I won't use the word most, many flippers underestimate the true cost of construction. And you would think that that would stand to reason. You're not a professional. You haven't been in the business for very long. You buy a house that has, sold way under market, and now you think that all of a sudden you're a construction expert. And I will tell you that when we go on inspections for flippers all the time, it is something that many, many contractors are on the lookout for nowadays. When you use the word flipper or a contractor or an inspector, whether it's plumbing, whether it's electrical, whether it's roofing, whether it's foundation, they are always on guard once they find out it's a flipper. And the reason that they're on guard is that they know that flippers cut corners, and they are liable for the information that they give. And they are looking at that more and more every day because of the proliferation of the flipping that's going on. It's just part of the industry now. And most professional contractors, whatever kind of contractor it is, are very much aware of it and spot it. So it can't be found if someone's trying to hide it. Okay. The process by which flippers will cooperate with realtors that have legitimate buyers is also a concern. And the reason that it's a concern is that obviously if someone has flipped a house and they have done a tremendous amount of repair, work. They know the house inside and out. And I will tell you that it's been my experience that many flippers do not disclose absolutely everything that they have found in the house. And part of the reason, I understand, is almost from a marketing standpoint, because if they really had to give a laundry list of everything they found, it doesn't make the particular listing look very good. And in fact, that's a real concern. And I won't get into the specifics as to whether that's legal, whether it's not, or speak in generalities. I'm not an attorney. I don't want to get off onto that tangent. But I will tell you that almost 95% of the time that we have a buyer buy a flip, many times we get limited disclosure about everything that was found out about that house. And that becomes a real concern. And that's where I'm talking about ethics. That's where I'm talking about what's legal. That's where I'm talking respective of how it is for a realtor to be frustrated sometimes with these flipping situations. As you begin to see, I've done many of these videos, the buying and selling of property is an extremely complicated proposition. And when you throw in people that are not professional, people that are just getting their feet wet, and again, I'm not discouraging it, there are problems that arise that are beyond measure for even them to understand. And so one of the things you don't want to become as a buyer is a person who gets the end result of that education process. And again, I don't know how much time we have gone here. Usually there's a time thing up here. Can't see it. Oh, there it is. I'm already gone 16 minutes. Okay. So I want to stress to you that, and I sound very negative today, I realize, because there's so much to talk about. But I am going to cut this off today and do a two-parter here, because the next thing I want to talk about is how to protect yourself, what to look out for. And I'll get into that next time. Sorry I went on too long. But as you can see, I'm kind of passionate about the idea that you really do need professionals, and certainly professionals not just as realtors, but professional contractors to protect you here. And that's what I'm going to get into next time, exactly what you can do to protect yourself, to make sure that even though you had that wow moment when you walked in, that continues, that you feel the same way about the house. Because the bottom line here is that flippers need to make a profit for all that work that they've done. And many of them do a great job, but there are some that are very suspect to what happens beyond the walls, beyond some of the things that you should be concerned about. So I'm going to give you some great tips next time on how to protect yourself, how to make sure you don't run into a situation where you're finding someone that's cutting corners, which obviously in the long run should be of great concern to you. Okay, so again, passionate about this subject because I've had two circumstances in just the last few weeks that just really alarmed me about this process and about this proliferation of being concerned with flippers and what the real cost is and what the real cost could be to you when you buy one. So we'll see you next time, next Tuesday at 10 a.m., everyone. One last thing before I go, down below you're going to see a link for our Fournier app, which allows you to take a picture of any house in the country, any house in America, and it'll give you the value of that house, the value of the houses next door to it, whether it's listed or not. You'll see the past history on the house. You'll see a market analysis if you'd like, schools in the areas, restaurants, all those kinds of things. Most everything that you could find on Zillow and Trulia now, and those are old school, believe it or not, you can see with just a picture nowadays by taking a picture of that address. I'm sorry, picture of that home. I jumped ahead of myself because I meant to say also that you can just simply punch in an address and the same thing happens. You don't even have to take a picture. So type in an address, boom, it's right there. Anyway, go ahead and click on, takes me a couple of minutes when I'm off the air to put it on there, but go ahead and click on the Fournier app and it will be downloaded once we get your email address and you can just go from there. All right. 10 o'clock Tuesday, everybody. See you then. 10 a.m. Tuesday. See you then.